So, I might make it comfy since my leg is messing with me. Alright. So, Proverbs. What can we say about Proverbs? There's 31 chapters, so a lot of people recommend you read Proverbs. A lot of the months have 31 days, so we have to recommend you read one every day of the month. And just keep going through it, because you can keep on trucking through and learning every day more and more. It's a living word. In Hebrew, Proverbs is mashal, which is like basically poetry, sayings. They use it as like instructions. Half of Proverbs is like poetry with sayings, and then half of it is instructions. So it's like it's perfect example for Solomon, who was a leader at the time, to be able to speak to his people and speak to everyone. So in a lot of ways, it's like the old-fashioned Twitter. It's God's Twitter, being able to go directly to the people. Of course, back then he used the priest and everybody going through the writings, but these writings were from Solomon. Not all of them. Some of them were other people, but I think most of these in here are from Solomon. He wrote 3,000 Proverbs, and then something like 1,005 Psalms. I can't imagine writing that many little Proverb chapters, but it's pretty cool. It's one of the poetic books. There's basically 5 of them: Job, Psalms, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon's. They all are the poetry books, basically. Kind of look at it that way. We have a proverb is very potent. It's a very it's poetry, but it's very potent in its way. And it's like it's words that are like an energy shot. It's like compared to I don't know. It's like drinking milk. It's good for you and it'll give you energy. But if you drink one of those Monster energy drinks, it's like it gives you the boost of energy. And that's kind of how the potency of a proverb in the Hebrew. And they do. There's all kinds of different ways that they look at the different proverbs. So let's see. I'm trying to think. Proverbs. Most of this chapter deals with wisdom. So in a way, it's a guidebook, and it's kind of like comparing it to Psalms. Psalms is worship, right? Psalms has a lot of worship going on, and so Psalms is a song book, and it deals with our prayer needs. Because when you're singing to God, you're singing a prayer, and you're rejoicing or blessing Him or praising Him. That's kind of that language is used in that way. And a proverb is kind of like God's guidebook back to us. Here, you did this, you do this. And the Proverbs, a lot of it, let's see, so it's got wisdom in it a lot, which the Hebrew word for wisdom, hokmah, is like, it's a type of wisdom that's from God's point of view. It takes the moral super high road. It's the wisdom from God's point of view, and it's giving us a skillful living. So it's kind of like giving us a skillful way to live our lives. That's the wisdom of it that helps produce. If we listen to it, we'll be following God's blueprint for our lives. Let's see. 2 things are certain. There's a God and I'm not Him. I have to throw that in there. But Proverbs 15:1. Before we even start with Proverbs 1, one of the perfect examples of Proverbs 15:1 is a good proverb where it's a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. So it's kind of like it brings the two playing fields that you have two options. That's Hebrew poetry. So it's a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. So it's kind of like if you're late coming home and your wife is mad at you. She goes, "Hey, where have you been? I've been trying to get this done and get this done." And then you go, "Well, I was out finding you flowers. These flowers." That's a soft answer to turn away the wrath. It just kind of it gives you that. That's a good way of looking at that particular proverb. But Solomon ruled from 971 BC to 931 BC. But the writings were put together like 250 years later. So he put all these documents out for the people to read for his son. It's clear when you're reading it, it's to his son and to those he loves, and to the Hebrew people. So as a king, he's putting down all this information, and then 250 years later, the scribes all put it all together with a mixture of other people that have that wrote in here too, and we'll go over that later. But it's pretty exciting stuff. One thing about Solomon, let's see, 1 Kings 4:29. Let's do 1 Kings 4:29 before we. Let's get to know. So we got, and God gave Solomon wisdom and exceedingly great understanding, and largeness of heart like the sand on the seashore. Thus Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the men of the east and all the wisdom of Egypt, for he was wiser than all men, than Ethan the Ezrahite, and Heman, and Chachal, and Darda, the sons of Mahal, and his fame was in all the surrounding nations. He spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. Also he spoke of trees, from the cedar tree of Lebanon, even to the hyssop and springs out of the well of the wall. He spoke also of animals, of birds, of creeping things, and of fish, and men of all nations from all kings of the earth who had heard of his wisdom came to hear the wisdom of Solomon. I mean, this is kind of who Solomon really was. He knew everything. These people would come from all over the world to listen to him speak on things or ask him questions. And it's interesting too, back here it says that there's about 5 of the most wisest men in the world. Can you imagine if we had that kind of looking or knowledge today, that we were looking for the wise guys? Because nowadays I don't think we'd come up with one wise man in the world that we could actually go to sound advice or something. We look at Google or whatnot, but it's just interesting. It's we also so that kind of deals with who Solomon was, how he knew everything about the trees and the animals and all kinds of things. Pretty interesting. And then you go to 1 Kings 3, and also it's in 2 Chronicles 1, but 1 Kings 3 is over. He's talking, Solomon asked for wisdom. God gives him basically his choice of what he would ask for, and Solomon is asking for wisdom. Because he asked for wisdom and knowledge to deal with his people, it basically God looks at him and says, wow, okay, good choice. He says, since you asked for that, I'm going to give you everything you didn't ask for. I'm going to give you wealth, long life, all this. I'm giving it, everything you didn't ask for, I'm going to give it to you. Because you asked for wisdom. That's mind-blowing in itself, because it's like, it's cool to see God kind of like, I don't know if he expected that or what, but it's just, obviously he did, but it's like, in this story, it's awesome to see. Let's see. Okay, back to Proverbs. So we'll go back. Proverbs 4:7, it says, wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and in all you're getting, get understanding. This is something that shows you where the heart of Solomon was. He wanted that wisdom. He put it, and he's telling everybody, get wisdom, get wise. And we know the wisdom that he's speaking of is God's skillful living, God's way of skillful living. So we have to live here on this planet, so we might as well live in the way God wants us to, right? So I'm going to go ahead and read through Proverbs 1 to, just the chapter 1, and then we'll go back through it again, okay? So, the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and increase learning, and a man of understanding will attain wise counsel. To understand a proverb and an enigma, the words of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. My son, hear the instruction of your father, and do not forsake the law of your mother, for they will be graceful ornaments on your head and chains about your neck. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. If they say, come with us, let us lie in wait to shed blood. Let us lurk secretly for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them alive like Sheol, and whole like those who go down to the pit. We shall find all kinds of precious possessions. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in your lot among us. Let us all have one purse. Share this. My son, do not walk in the way with them. Keep your foot from their path, for their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed blood. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird, but they lie in wait for their own blood. They lurk secretly for their own lives. So are the ways of everyone who is greedy for gain. It takes away the life of its owners. Wisdom calls aloud outside. She raises her voice in the open squares. She cries out in the chief concourses, at the openings of the gate in the city. She speaks her words. How long, you simple ones, will you love simplicity? For scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. Turn at my rebuke. Surely I will pour out my spirit on you. I will make my words known to you, because I have called and you refused. I have stretched out my hand and no one regards. Because you disdained all my counsel and would have none of my rebuke, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your terror comes. When your terror comes like a storm, and your destruction comes like a whirlwind. When distress and anguish comes upon you, then they will call on me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but they will not find me. Because they hated knowledge, and did not choose to fear of the Lord, they would have none of my counsel, and despised my every rebuke. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their own way, and be filled to the full with their own fancies. For the turning away of the simple will slay them, and the complacency of fools will destroy them. But whoever listens to me will dwell safely, and will be secure without fear of evil. Alright, so we go back to 1. That's great. So, let's do 1 through 7 again real quick. The proverb of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the word of understanding, to receive the instructions of wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and increase learning, and a man of understanding will attain wise counsel. To understand a proverb and an enigma, to the words of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. So, when he's bringing up the fear of the Lord here is reverence towards God, revering God. And it's even more than that. It's obviously knowing that who God is, but that fear of the Lord, it comes when you meet God. When you come to a point where you understand who God is, you have to fear Him. There's a respect, there's a joy, but there's a definite, there's power in God. So don't come at Him like He's just a little kitten or something. The interesting here, the verse 7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. The fear of the Lord, so in Proverbs 9:10, it actually says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. So it has knowledge here, and then it has wisdom in chapter 9, verse 10. It says the fear of the Lord is wisdom. So it's the same thing in a way. It's just interesting that he puts it out there twice, in the Proverbs to make you, hey, this is what it means to keep going after it. The fear of the Lord is wisdom, and the fear of the Lord is knowledge. Now, knowledge and wisdom can be two different things. We look at it. So, for instance, knowledge is knowing that tomato is a fruit, right? Wisdom is knowing that you don't put a tomato in fruit salad, because it doesn't taste good. So it's this kind of thing of the different knowledge, accumulating information. Wisdom is the application of the information. So you got these very similar, in the way that you get the knowledge, but the wisdom is full-blown applying that knowledge that you know with God's skillful living, with God's way to apply it. Because you can't just, say what's what, and you have to follow the rules. God's made these rules for us, and it's very special in a way that we do. The other side of it is with 7, and then let's read on 8 and 9. My son, hear the instructions of your father, and do not forsake the law of your mother, for they will be a graceful ornament on your head and chains about your neck. He's talking about bling right there. He's given if you follow the law of your mother and the instructions of your father, they will be like jewelry. Everybody can see it. Everybody will be able to see it. Then they can tell that this guy's legit. He's real. Let's see. It's nowadays it's a way to look at it is progress. So every generation feels like they have to change something and bring more progress. But this is telling you, listen to the ways, conserve the values of your father and mother. Keep it in a way that you keep that law, keep following God. You don't need to add anything to it. It's saying, follow the instructions. It's really quite interesting that even back then, of course, the generations were trying to change things up and progress, and as everyone would, but having those basic instructions from your parents, especially godly parents, I should say, that keeps you in check and keeps you ready for anything, ready for the next step. It's a cool way God has for keeping us on the straight and narrow, right? Proverbs 12:1 says, "Whoever loves instruction loves knowledge, but he who hates correction is stupid." I didn't know stupid was in the Bible. That's a good one. But it's pretty good. It says, if you hate instructions and you hate correction, you are stupid, because you're sitting there going, I don't want to be corrected. Why? Because I'm embarrassed. It's humiliating. You don't want to be the guy that everybody's always, and nobody wants to be that guy. Well, don't be. Figure out what's right. Follow it. God's got it laid out here, and you won't be that guy. But yeah, as long as you love you don't have to love to be corrected, but you should love the fact that God loves you enough to correct you, right? It's one of those things that just comes with being a Christian. We love Jesus. Jesus says this is how you should then live, and we try to follow it. And one of the things is obeying your parents. And probably for some people it's more difficult than others. If you don't have a Christian parent, it can be really almost impossible, because you're trying to do the right thing and they're doing things that are wrong. But there are certain ways to get into a safe, bring them to Jesus is one way to try to communicate that love that God has for them, and actually being obedient even if you don't agree with the thing is the whole point of honoring your parents. It's no kid wants to go to bed when their parent tells them to, but when they do, it's good. It's a good thing. You're being obedient. Let's see. There's let's see, what else can you study forever and always get something out of it? It's like with wisdom, with Proverbs, and like I was saying earlier, there's 31, so you could go through it every month. You could continue to study it, and you'll always grab these gold nuggets out of it. Especially if you're fellowshipping with others and you're getting something out and they're sharing with you what they got out of it. It's a really beautiful thing how God will speak to you. Like I was saying, how it's like God's Twitter to us. It's like, boom. It keeps, they're right here. They're right there for you. Short little nuggets. Like things that I think of like that is like people that are masters at guitar or masters at karate or kung fu or whatever. Some people never master it, years in it, And probably if you talk to somebody that everybody considers that is a master at it, they really aren't. They know. They will say, there's more I have to find out. There's more I'm learning every day, just along with everyone. And that's the scripture is that way. The scripture is definitely our continual learning, and it's a beautiful thing God has for us. All right, let's keep going here. 10. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. If they say, come with us, let us lie in wait to shed blood, let us lurk secretly for the innocents without cause. 12. Let us swallow them alive like Sheol, and whole like those who go down to the pit. We shall find all kinds of precious possessions. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in your lot among us. Let us have one purse. My son, do not walk in the way with them. Keep your foot from their path, for their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed blood. Surely they make haste to shed blood. This is interesting because how, for us nowadays, most people I know aren't getting ready to be gangbangers. They're not, how this can apply to us though is they're going out and they're giving somebody else a bad time. They're creating mischief. They're being terrible human beings there towards others. They're hurting their fellow man, right? And they're coming as a group to do that. So what could we apply that to? Maybe we're not gangsters so much. We're Googlers. We go to Google and we Google up things and we look up Facebook and all the social network and we look for the dirt on people. We want to scrounge up everything we can, hunt for it, bring it to the light, right? And try to solve all the problems with the world that way somehow thinking that we're doing right by digging dirt on people and bringing it and yeah, to a certain point, yes, there's justice, there's absolute a need to shed things in the light, for the truth to be in the open. But the way that a lot of it goes on the internet is just sickening and disgusting, and it's only for reward. And even if it's reward, just the happiness of bringing somebody down, right? They don't necessarily care, but they just want to bring somebody down. That's a terrible way to live. And he's saying, don't go after that. Don't go out hunting to hurt people. Don't go, even as far as where these guys are going out and robbing people, and they're going to share it. Well, sharing's a good thing. No, it's it's like bikers that go out and do everything wrong, get a bunch of money, and rob people, and then they have this gang hideout with all their money and stuff. It's wrong. It's criminal, is what it is. But yeah, I just think it's interesting how, for application for us, it's more that tearing down others to make yourself to put yourself in a better spot. So whether it be scamming somebody on the internet or scamming people, whatever you're looking towards, that's the wrong thing, Let's see. So and then if you say, Matt, you're wrong. That's not the Google. This next verse, 17. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of many birds. But you say but they lie in wait for their own blood. They lurk secretly for their own lives. So are the ways of everyone who is greedy for gain. It takes away the life of its owners. It's really cool. So these guys that set up their net, he's saying now, look, they do all this and they're going after these people. It's taking away from them in the end. They lose. I talked to a guy this week at work that he's a pool shark. That's how he made his living his whole life. He won every game, never lost. He was a pool shark. He made money off of it, lots of money. Today he feels terrible for the amount of losers that he made, and he knows the money was, and he fair and square got it, but he knew who he was. He knew how good he was, he, went through that and enjoyed that time, and yeah, and he's living with it now, and he's going through that guilty phase. We all feel guilty when we do something to others that brings it down. If God is dealing with us, if we ignore it, we can ignore it for so long. But this was years ago. This stuff happened, and he's just now coming to Jesus, and he's saying, "Man, I wish I could find these people and help them and figure out what to do to make it right." He's concerned with that, and that tells me his heart's right, because God does deal with us, and God does make us to, especially at the end of his life like this. It's like he's coming to realize what you do to others and with others makes it matters. So let's read 20. Wisdom calls aloud outside. She raises her voice in the open squares. She cries out in the chief concourses at the openings of the gate in the city. She speaks her words. So wisdom on this one, it's a woman, personified as a woman. I don't know why. They go. So the interesting thing is there was a lady doing some study on brains, and she was talking to the cadaver. She was trying to get different the people that sold the cadavers. She was looking at these brains, and one was $1,000 and one was $2,000, and she goes, "Well, why is the difference?" And she said, "Well, the one for 1,000 is a woman's brain. The one for 2,000 is a man's brain." And he goes, she's like, "Why are you charging so much more for the man's brain?" He goes, "Are you kidding me? It's like brand new. It's never used." But it's like the men seem to use less of their brain, and so that wise. It's an interesting thing that he's describing wisdom as a woman. she's using her brain. Let's see. So we got 21. At 22. How long, you simple one, will you love simplicity? You scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. Turn at my rebuke. Surely I will pour out my spirit on you. I will make my words known to you, because I have called and you refused. I have stretched out my hand and no one regarded. Because you disdained all my counsel and would have none of my rebuke. I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your terror comes. When your terror comes like a storm, and your destruction comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you. This one here, 28. Then they will call on me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but they will not find me. This reminds me of the rich man and Lazarus in hell, or in Abraham's bosom and hell across the way. And he's saying, at that point, it's too late. That's like, this is what she's saying. It's too late. Come at me like asking for help now. It's too late. And there is a time that comes in your life when it is too late. You need to, or not in life, but in your spiritual journey, I should say, where it's too late. So do it now. The time is now to come to that wisdom and understanding and the knowledge of Jesus Christ, right? The whole that the rich man and Lazarus was 16, Luke 16:19. It's the interesting thing about that too is when Jesus was telling that story, it wasn't a parable. It was a true story of this happened. Jesus is talking about Lazarus and using the names. People knew who he was talking about. And this happened in hell, where the rich man was asking for water, just a little bit of water or something, help me out. And it's an interesting thing with this 28. Then they will call on me, but will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but they will not find me. What a terrible place to be, where you don't find wisdom, where you can't find it when you're searching. And that really is scary. 29. Because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, they would have none of my counsel, and despise my every rebuke. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their own way, and be filled to the full with their own fancies. For the turning away of the simple will slay them, and the complacency of fools will destroy them. But whoever listens to me will dwell safely, and will be secure without fear of evil. This part here is very clear. It's on the end of it, which it's interesting that even this first chapter is dealing with first wisdom and then the counterpart, the fool. So there's wise and foolish, wisdom, foolishness. And it's interesting how even this, in the way that this is written, half of it is the wise part and what to do, and then the other half is what the foolish people do. So you're able to distinct what's right and wrong. And it's really cool how God lines us up to keep us all guided. We have this guidance and this way to keep on trucking along, while we have all the words that we need, all the every step of the journey is mapped out for us within this book. Trying to think so to end on that is basically that whoever listens to wisdom, the wise counsel, will dwell safely and will be secure without fear of evil. So just keep on looking for Jesus and keep on dwelling in his counsel, and we will be safe from harm. The evil one can't touch us. Even in this, to me, it's showing salvation. Even in this first chapter Solomon wrote, it's showing the salvation. And that's just awesome. And I guess we can just close in prayer and just come to the Lord together. If you have a prayer, lift it up. Thank you, Lord, for every part that you